Whoa. Oops. Hey, good people, how you doing? Welcome to episode 20 of 254 Rugby. My name is Michael Kwambo. We will be riding this one solo. Walter Orange is not available. A lot of things happened over the weekend. There was rugby both local and international. In Kenya, we did have the leagues continuing right from the nationwide, the KRU Championship, the Eric Shirley Shield Reserve competition, and the Kenya Cup. And in Uganda, we did have the Uganda Rugby Premiership kickoff with match day one. While internationally, we did have action in a lot of competitions, in particular the European Rugby Champions Cup, which will be part of the content in today's episode. Episode 20, a milestone episode for us. Well, let's get it on. And we start in the second tier KRU Championship. Remember, the KRU Championship is the tournament that sees teams promoted to the top tier Kenya Cup. The top two teams at the close of the season taking the place of the two teams relegated from the Kenya Cup. And action continued this past weekend. The front runners all registering wins. And let's just look at the results from match day 5 in the KRU Championship coming up on our screens. 1977, 1988, and 1990 Kenya Cup champions Mean Machine defeated the two Marines 14-8 in Mombasa. The ZTEC Oaks were 35-23 winners over the USIU Marshals. Catholic Monks were 22-0 winners over the UAE Trojans in a match that was ill-tempered. And Homeboys were 20-13 winners against Mombasa. Masinde Muliro overcame a slow start to stop the JK Watt Cougars 24-0, while the Daystar Falcons were 22-6 winners over Western Bulls from Kakamega. And looking at the standings, well, it's pretty much the teams that we do expect to be at the top. And here they are. We do have Masinde Muliro leading the bunch there, and then Catholic Monks, Daystar Falcons, and Homeboys rounding off the top four, while ZTEC Oaks and Western Bulls in positions 5 and 6. Now, the way it works is the teams in position 1 and 2 at the close of the regular season secure home semi-final slots, while the teams in 3, 4, 5, and 6 play off for a chance to meet the top two teams in the semis and eventually fight for a ticket to the final, but more importantly, secure qualification to the top tier Kenya Cup for the 2025-2026 season. There's still some weeks of action left, and we will be keen to see how it unfolds. Now let's go across the border to Uganda, where the Uganda Rugby Premiership kicked off. The reason that we are keeping tabs on Uganda is that they will be the Simba's opponents in the Rugby Africa Cup 2025, which they are hosting. These two sides meet in a quarterfinal fixture of the competition, which this year serves as the Rugby World Cup 2027 qualification tournament for Africa. And you lose that game, well, forget about your World Cup hopes. So it would be good to keep tabs on the neighbors. Their league kicking off this past weekend with match day 1, 6 fixtures on the cards. And let's just have a look at the results from Uganda on match day 1. The Pirates defeating Walukuba by 38 points to 10. Hippos were 30-24 victors over the Buffaloes. Cobs suffering a shock home defeat to the Rhinos, going down 13-11, while the Heathens, the defending champions, were too strong for the Warriors, claiming the 45-12 win on the day. The battle of the promoted sides saw the Eagles and Victoria Sharks clash at Chitante, and the Victoria Sharks, who have intricately assembled their squad, pulling off the 6-point margin of victory over the Eagles, claiming the 22-16 result. While in Mbale, close to the Kenyan border, Elgon Wolves and Entebbe Mongers clashed in a match that ended up in the Mongers' favor. 16 points to 9, the result on the day. Well, that is match day 1 from Uganda, and we will try as much as possible to keep tabs on Ugandan rugby, get some comments as well from friends and colleagues in Uganda. Now, let's come back to Kenya and the Kenya Cup, the top tier league. It continued with match day 4. And there was a lot of hype around the fixture between Kisumu and the South Coast Pirates. Both teams were looking for their first win of the season. And Kisumu winning that game by 38 points to 9, and also winning the Obange Cup in memory of their former club chairman, Fidel Odinga, who passed away 10 years ago. This around this time 10 years ago. Other results on the day saw routine wins for KCB and Kabras Sugar. KCB were too strong for Mwamba, defeating the Black Shirts 80-22 at the RFUA ground in the early kickoff on Saturday. Nondescripts went to the Kenyatta University and emerged with the win 23-3 against Kenyatta University Blackblood. Kabras Sugar were 45-5 winners over the Strathmore Leos. Menengai Oilers won the Nakuru Derby, defeating hosts Nakuru RFC 34-15, while Queens were winners in the Ngong Road Derby, 48 points to 12 against bitter rivals and next-door neighbours, Impala. And looking at the standings in the Kenya Cup, this is what it looks like after match day 4. KCB returning to the summit with that big win over Mwamba. Defending champions Kabras Sugar a second. Menengai Oilers, Kenya Harlequin, and Nondis rounding off the top 5. All these teams unbeaten. They boast 100% records, but I'm sure these records will begin to change as the weeks wear on. Kenyatta University Blackblood are in 6th place, Impala RFC 7th, Kisumu 8th after that victory over the South Coast Pirates, while there's the quartet of Nakuru RFC, Strathmore Leos, South Coast Pirates, and Mwamba, all winless. And Mwamba, winners of the Kenya Cup in 1983, are at the bottom. 4 losses from 4 outings. South Coast Pirates also the same. Nakuru and Strathmore Leos. But again, like we say, we are definitely going to see changes in the league composition. And not really the league composition, but in the standings as the weeks go by. Let's now look forward to the fixtures that we will be expecting on match day 5 in the Kenya Cup. Matches to look forward to, and probably some predictions that we will give. Impala and Kisumu, that should be an interesting clash at the Impala Club. Both teams will be looking for their second win of the season. Both teams looking to survive in the Kenya Cup, and they will have earmarked this game. Kisumu will be buoyed by the 38-9 victory over the South Coast Pirates, while Impala, on the other hand, will be looking to bounce back from defeat in the Ngong Road Derby, and they will definitely look at Kisumu as easy pickings in that fixture. It should be an interesting clash and one that we will be keeping tabs on. Over at the Seacrest grounds in Ukunda in the South Coast Pirates welcome the students from Madaraka, the Strathmore Leos, for match day 5 action. Should be, well, an interesting clash, but you just feel that the Leos have got the edge over the Pirates, and they will be running off with the win as they look to make another great escape from the jaws of relegation. Over in Kakamega, Kabras Sugar have a relatively straightforward fixture against Mwamba. Same for KCB against Nakuru. But when you look at these two fixtures, especially Kabras, Mwamba, KCB, Rugby versus Nakuru, probably 10 years ago, these were evenly matched fixtures. But of course, a lot has happened in terms of playing personnel and also the fortunes financially for the self-supporting teams, Mwamba and Nakuru. And they are struggling to stay afloat, struggling to stay competitive. And this weekend doesn't get any easier when they come up against well-heeled, well-resourced opponents in the form of Kabras Sugar and KCB, respectively. Kenyatta University Blackblood make the trip to Nakuru to play Menengai Oilers. It is another straightforward result, expecting a win for the Oilers against Kenyatta University Blackblood. Over at the Ngong Racecourse, there is another Ngong Road Derby, this time pitting nondescripts against Kenya Harlequin. It should be an interesting clash. Mondi's beefing up their squad, but you just feel that Queens have the quality and the edge over Mondi's and will be expected to win that game. Now, still talking about local rugby, and head coach Kevin Wambua is expected to name the Shujaa squad to the HSB 7's leg in Perth, Australia on Wednesday morning. Now, We will obviously be looking forward to the return of some experienced players in the form of Tony Omondi and Vincent Onyala. That is, if they make the cut. And remember, Shuja will be going into Perth minus Crescent Ojuang, who underwent surgery after sustaining an injury during the Dubai Sevens, the season opening competition in December last year. Just looking at Shuja's fixtures when they head out to Perth, Australia, they find themselves in a pool that also has Fiji, New Zealand, and Uruguay. They start their campaign with a clash against Fiji, with a clash against New Zealand, they take on Fiji, and then finish off with Uruguay. Difficult matches, but the self belief in the boys, the talent in the boys, and also just the outcome of a rugby match. Everything could work for them. We are wishing them all the best as they head to the Australian continent for round 3 of the 2025 HSBC Sevens World Series. Now, let's get into some headlines that have caught the attention of rugby lovers across the globe. We want to look at the international headlines and probably get to expound on them a bit more. There they are. There is going to be a crossover fixture between MLR and Super Rugby sides. MLR is the Major League Rugby. This is the top tier competition for clubs in the United States of America. Super Rugby, well, we all know about it. It is a franchise competition that features teams from Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and the Pacific Islands. And the Fijian Drua will host Rugby Football Club Los Angeles on 24th of January in Lautaka. Looking at the RFCLA side, it is stacked with a lot of Australian talent, headed by former Wallaby and Samoan playmaker and cancer survivor Christian Leafiao. In other news, Kurtley Beale returns to Western Force as a part of his injury rehab with a view to playing in the 2025 Super Rugby competition. And then heading over to the United Kingdom, where Ilona Meha celebrated her first start for the Bristol Bears with a try as her side defeated the Exeter Chiefs 41-31 in Premiership women's rugby action on Sunday. Who is Ilona Meha, you might ask? She is a United States international. She featured in the side that won a bronze medal in the Rugby Sevens competition at the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, France. And wait for this. She is the most followed rugby player, male or female, on social media. In other news, still related to the Six Nations, we'll get to that first, but let's talk about the comments from Antoine Dupont. He is the captain of Toulouse in the French top tier competition, and they are taking part in the European Rugby Champions Cup. And Dupont has questioned the logic of having South African teams in the Champions Cup, as he says it forces teams to name second string sides due to lengthy travel constraints. And I do think he has a point, because you want to be competitive in every match that you go out, but because the resources are spread so thin, you have to work with what you've got. Now, let's talk about the Six Nations and let's talk about Wales. Wales struggled in 2024, going an entire calendar year without a win. And Warren Gatland has made big changes for the Six Nations. The Welsh are boosted by the return of Taulape Felatau, Liam Williams, and Josh Adams, who between them have 255 caps. And these guys, remember, they missed the autumn internationals through injury. Other players also coming back for Wales are Elliot D, David Jenkins, and Joe Roberts, who also all missed the autumn tests. Now, let's get closer to Wales, and that is to England, where Maro Itoje has been handed the captaincy as England's Six Nations squad was named this week. He becomes the 136th player to captain England since their first ever international in 1871. Now, closer home, Zimbabwe, the reigning Rugby Africa Cup champions, have intensified their preparations for the 2025 competition. They've already begun training. Remember, last year they closed off the year with a 12 Asia, winning their fixtures there to complete the calendar year unbeaten, and they're looking to carry that momentum into 2025 as they look to return to the Rugby World Cup for the first time since 1991. Well, something about Zimbabwe is that they were Africa's first representatives at the Rugby World Cup, featuring at the 1987 and 1991 competitions, and have missed out ever since. And they obviously taking their campaign seriously and full of belief, they will have to ward off the likes of Namibia, Algeria, Kenya, Uganda, who all have intentions as well. Now, the World Rugby 7 Series continues in Perth this month, actually from the 24th to the 26th. And as we speak about it, there has been an article in the New Zealand Herald that speaks of massive losses that the competition has incurred since 2023, when World Rugby decided to operate a centralized model. Insiders estimate that the Sevens series has lost between 15 to 25 million pounds, and it's attributed to excessive expenses, such as carrying extra stuff, having to fly teams from point A to B. And remember, there's 12 men's teams, 12 women's teams, there's match officials, there's all that, all those costs being shouldered by World Rugby. And then also the fact that some venues struggle in terms of attracting numbers and obviously turning over profits. And the article also goes on to state that World Rugby will rethink its hosting criteria in 2026. Yeah. Well, that's about it for this edition of 254 Rugby. It has been a short and sharp one. Thank you so much for, always supporting the channel. We hope to be back to full complement next week. But for now, signing off. And, if you get this, like, share, subscribe, and keep, coming back to 254 Rugby for more information about Kenyan and international rugby. Obviously, tomorrow we're going to give you news about the Shujaa squad to the HSB 7's series leg in Perth. My name is Michael Kwambo signing out. Thanks for watching. Let's catch up again next time.